Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, this is BestInSlot, and in tonight's video we're going to do a speedio recap of all the new information we learned in Dev Diary 1 yesterday for Jurassic World Evolution 2. My video yesterday was well over an hour long, and I've had a day now to pick out more details, to gather details from what other people have spotted around the interwebs, and indeed from your comments at home, and compiled that into a much quicker video with hopefully some speedy analysis as well. Let's not waste any time then, let's get started. And we're going to kick things off with the new confirmed dinosaurs. Confirmed is in inverted commas for a reason, as we'll see. First on that list is Mosasaurus. We kind of suspected this was in. We had already spotted it on the thumbnail, but it's nice to get confirmation. And it's nice that it's bred with the Swamp Thing to make this monstrous new green Cory. It's beautiful stuff, really. The Diplodocus also popped up, especially when zoomed in. You can really see the sort of spikes, the raised spine going down the back of the dinosaur. Definitely doesn't look like a Patasaurus. We saw Pachycephalosaurus along with this beautiful rock image, and we also saw Dracorex, Pachycephalosaurus's pointless youngest brother, sibling, sister, whatever you want to call it. Chasmosaurus popped up in a very far away image we got here. This is interesting in that it appears that the Chasmosaurus is quite small. Now that's not just because it's far away, it does look small relative to everything else. Jurassic World Evolution had a bit of a problem where in the ceratopsids in particular, they were all basically the exact same size for some reason. It looks like that may have been addressed. We will have to see the Chasmosaurus in a better context next to, say, a Triceratops to clarify that, but, you know, this has potential. We saw another ceratopsid via the Torosaurus and 3 different basicans there as well, very cool. Next up, these are less confirmed. We saw Albertosaurus and Nigersaurus. Camarasaurus had already been confirmed in these images. Now these are placeholder images. These are images from Jurassic World Evolution 1. We all recognise that on the stream pretty much instantly, and it has been confirmed by Frontier, or at least partially confirmed, that these are placeholder images, and I'm pretty sure they are. However, I would wager a guess that they wouldn't include placeholder images of dinosaurs that aren't in Evolution 2, even if they are placeholder images, and then show that on stream. I would suggest this heavily suggests, I've said suggest far too many times, that Nigersaurus and Albertosaurus are both in the game, but I don't think we can take it as confirmation quite yet. And finally, on this image here in the sand bowl, we have what looks like a Parasaurolophus. This is what people are suggesting it is. You can kind of see the curve back there on the crest. Again, I don't want to call this confirmed, it's very far away, we're a little bit hesitant about this one as well. Moving on from that, what did we actually learn about the dinosaurs outside of the new species? First thing a lot of people pointed out is that our Pachycephalosaurus was seen leaving footprints on the desert environment. Now we actually already knew about this, we'd seen this in the Coelophysis field guide, but so many people have commented about it that I thought I'd throw it in there because it was nice to see it in action in a better angle. We got our first look at the pack hunting mechanic. Now I'll show you the video in a second, because not only did we see that, we saw a new trotting, bounding animation from the Stegosaurus that looks a lot nicer. But I'd also like to point out that if you focus on the video on this raptor on the right hand side, it does suggest that this pack hunting is dynamic somewhat. You'll see the raptor kind of, it looks a little awkward, but that's actually a good thing here. It kind of curves to the inside and then curves to the outside, like it doesn't really know where to go. And I think the erratic movement of that raptor confirms that it is actively looking for a route as opposed to following a set pattern. Again, we need to see this in more detail, but check out the video, see what you think for yourself. We also saw what is going to be the name of my first band, Interspecies Herbivore Territorial Combat. This is the crossover between the Stegosaurus and the Triceratops, the latter of which we know does not play nicely with others. I want to point out something else while we're here, because I've just realised I forgot it. We also saw a new fence type, this one here, and it's got these faded yellow little nodules here and there. I suspect this is a customizable fence with custom colours. We'll have to wait and see. And that would have gone in this next section, new buildings. First up, we saw a new style of aviary. Now, I've called this the hot weather aviary. I got a lot of pushback on this on my stream, but everyone is wrong except me. So, this is not the old style aviary. In aesthetics, it's a little bit more like the old style, a little bit more like the JP3 aviary, with that grate, with the gates, with the fencing style dome, right? However, in shape, in presence of the spire here, and what are clearly joint points here where more aviaries can be attached. Looks like a very strange bug there. This is actually the new aviary, but on a different skin. There was a suggestion by someone on my stream that I really liked, and that is because we're here in this desert, burning hot environment with all the sand and everything like that, that a glass dome aviary would essentially be a giant glass house that would then cook our pterosaurs. Basically, like, you can't have this hot, arid, very sunny environment and have a glass building for real life. They'll die. The monorail returns, that's our first confirmation of that. I think it was expected a little bit, but a little bit more doubtful because it seems unlikely that guests will enter the parks in the same way as they did in the first game. In fact, I think we've already seen that they don't. We saw what looks to be a mini generator of some form. It's completely disconnected from the path, and it's here sort of supplying these staff buildings. I suspect that is the idea. If you've got just a couple of buildings off in the middle of nowhere, you can just plonk down a little generator to keep them going. We got the confirmation returning of tours. Of course, gyrospheres were already confirmed earlier the week, but here we have the word, where is it, tours, right there. Of course, we see the truck tour there. That doesn't necessarily mean it's returning, but the word tours means probably at least the JP vehicles, and maybe also the trucks as well. Now the one everyone was waiting for. We did see the Mosasaurus, well, general aquatic species lagoon for the very first time. It was off in the distance, it was hard to spot, but we got to see it. And it does look like the lagoon from Jurassic World in that it's just a big flat plane of water. But there's a couple other things we can deduce from this. First of all, I suspect you can maybe put viewing areas along the side like you can with a classic enclosure. You know, you'd have the seating areas from the Mosasaurus Lagoon in Jurassic World, for example. You'd attach those to the side, your guests could come and sit down. There's the suggestion that what we're seeing around here, although again this is very, very low res and hard to tell, and I've kind of blocked it out already, that this might be a shark feeding station kind of thing, again like Jurassic World. There's also a little thing here, no idea what that is. That could be the way you get underground. So you can see here it's got this big wall around the outside, and then you can see the water from the top. I think it's unlikely that the only way we view this habitat is from above, because at the end of the day, reviewing aquatic creatures, you should probably see them underwater, so I suspect there is a way, although we can't really see it unless it is over here, for our guests to get below ground and view the lagoon from underwater, again, like in Jurassic World, where the chairs drop down and they see the Mosasaurus swimming about. I would say, by the way, given the fairly plain exterior, that this functions the same way as the aviary, in that you put down a node, put down another node, and they connect, like that. In terms of decorations, we saw some lights and we saw some plant things. Both of these stayed the same as the buildings changed, so it looks like these are new decorations, basically, that will be able to be placed outside of your buildings. We of course knew that was a possibility, but here we get to actually see them in action a little bit. Little cool thing here, this is our new, I should actually have mentioned this as well, this is our new response team building, which combines the ACU and the Ranger teams from the previous game into one building with both jeeps and helicopters, and it's connected to the new veterinary building. But the interesting thing about this is that there is no path coming off this. Now in Jurassic World Evolution 1, these buildings would not have worked in this context. They need to be connected to the rest of the park, either via monorail or by path, but everything has to be connected to the entrance of the park in some way, or it doesn't function. That doesn't seem to be a requirement anymore. We'll have to see how it works in reality, but that's a little cool step as well. We're getting there, folks, I promise. Next up, terrain stuff. Lots of exciting stuff here. First of all, we can now rotate rocks both horizontally via the x-axis and topsy-turvy wibbly-wobbly via the y-axis. It looks like there are 5 rocks per biome, going up in increasing sizes, and based on the size of this bar right here on the right-hand side, that suggests, to me at least, there's 4 biomes in the game. We also got a look at the new terrain painting system, which not only looked a lot cooler, but now has more options. There are 6 terrains. This is for the desert map, so it's all desert themed, I should expect. And there are more radius options as well, giving us a little bit more control. The brush size is definitely larger than the maximum we had in Jurassic World Evolution 1. We also got a look at the new foliage system, and we saw how the nature stuff that you put down is now divided into several sections, at least 2, maybe 3. I'm hesitant, again, based on the size of the search bar, but it looks like we've now got a forest, leaf and fibre section, and we also have a fruit and nut section, and each are providing different stat values. So this forest button here provides, shockingly enough, forest. Maybe some of the others, like this one over here, would provide forest and ground fibre, but in lesser amounts. This one here would provide just ground fibre, stuff like that. There's also a fruit and nuts section, which likely ties in more to the preference your herbivores have for eating particular food types and stuff like that. There is another button I want to point out here because, again, I didn't do a tab on it, and it's this one right here. Now, lots of people have... I kind of freaked out about the goat. Lots of people have pointed out that because we're in the environment tab and we're adding all this food for the herbivores, the goat tab is probably just our carnivore feeders. That is probably true. I will say, however, that because the goat feeder is likely still mechanical, as in it's going to be a metal thing that pops up goats, because you can't just have goats spawn out of nowhere. That's much more weird than your foliage spawning out of nowhere. Because of that, I do find it odd that the goat is in the environmental tab. It's probably just for ease of access, so when you're designing carnivore habitats, you can do absolutely everything in one tab, just like you can with the herbivores, but it is slightly odd, and I just wanted to point it out. Also, sort of in terrain, we got our first look at sandstorms. Very cool. Now, we already knew snowstorms were in the game. Sandstorms have been included as well. I suspect tornadoes will be for the tropical maps. And then we've got one more biome, and who knows what that could be. My money, again, is on a lightning storm of some description with actual forked lightning striking your park in several areas, but we'll have to wait and see. Pretty cool little feature that I missed on the actual stream, but water caustics have been added to the game. That's this light pattern you see here. Caustics in this situation is basically a curved light refraction that you'll most commonly see in swimming pools and shallower water and stuff like that. It makes the water look a lot more realistic, makes it look sexy, and that's very important. Looks great. Also of note is what is seemingly teeny tiny hitboxes. I'm sure this wasn't on purpose, but maybe it was. They've stuck a cactus inside of a rock. Now it looks a bit silly, because why would there be a cactus inside of a rock? But what it does show is the insane overlap we can achieve between our foliage and between our rocks. That's very interesting. Now, even if the rocks themselves can't directly overlap, we can see here the gap between the two is very, very tiny. It's much smaller than it was possible to do in Jurassic World Evolution 1. The final thing we're going to go through now, but it does require some explanation, is the staff system. We got lots more information about how this will function. So first of all, you'll be able to hire your staff members via this screen right here. You'll be able to hire more staff members the more staff buildings you have. We talked about that earlier on in the week. Your staff members have faces, they have names, they've got traits, they've got costs to both hire and to manage per month, and we also got to look at their stats. And their stats have been split into 3 different sections. That's logistics, genetics, and welfare. Logistics is building management, genetics is probably, breeding your dinosaurs, and welfare is veterinary management, we can assume. We have more than that though. When it comes to hiring your scientists, they also have traits, special skills that make them better than other scientists, so reduce the cost of research, reduce salary, decreases time for research, increase stress limits, stuff like that. You can pick the staff members that are more well suited for what you want to do in your park. Even more important than that though, they have bios and they're mad. For example, Alan Yanez over here one day dreams of visiting Area 51. Tyson Park claims to have been visited by ghosts on numerous occasions. I don't know why that's important, but I love that that's a detail. Okay, so what are all these stats actually used for? Well, we saw what logistics are used for, and that's upgrades on buildings. Now that system has changed a little bit. I could have maybe put this in the building section. In the past game, you had a bunch of slots, and you could choose what went in each slot for upgrading your buildings. That has now changed, and each building has a number of upgrades available, 6 in total, and you basically have to research each individual upgrade. It probably increases the cost each time, it probably increases the amount of electricity used, stuff like that. Task efficiency is a little more confusing, maybe it's a speed thing or something like that, how quick they can go from task to task, how little rest they need, something like that. How you apply these though all leads into the staff system, so we actually got to see that in action as well. Basically, your staff members have a certain level of points in logistics, and each upgrade will require a certain number of points in logistics. So if we look here in this corner here, you can see it says 3 out of 2, so that means this upgrade for the response facility, which is the name of the building, to add the additional ranger team requires 2 logistic points. So what you're going to be doing is choosing the staff members that totaled have 2 logistic points. In that case, Gil and Chung, you can see have 1 each. They would then be able to do the job. If instead you wanted, you could just send Schofield or Rashid or McCarthy on their own, because as you can see they've got 2, 2, 3. They've got more logistic points than necessary. They could do the job on their own. Now as you can see, staff also get stressed, so each time they do a job, that stress is going to go higher and higher. So in a way it makes sense to use as little staff as possible, so you're contributing less to your overall staff stress. That said, you can see here they've used Chung and Schofield, which totals 3 instead. It's 3 over 2, so it's more than necessary, and because of that excess skill point, the duration of the task to upgrade this building is reduced by 10%. So you can get things done faster if you put more staff onto a job, which is a really cool, logical system. I love this. I don't want to go on about it for too long, I'm trying to be speedy, but I think this is a really, really cool system. But your staff can get stressed, and if they do, they will cause sabotage. And you can see here that sabotage does in fact trigger that disaster warning we've talked about in the past. Now the sabotage is a little bit weird because the unhappy staff here has caused a guest protest. Basically it seems your guests are unhappy with your staff's working conditions, the staff have gone and riled everyone up, and they've got the guest involved. I'm not totally sure that makes sense. It makes more sense than it did in the last game though, so that's okay. Either way, keep your staff happy and you won't have to deal with sabotage and staff problems like this. And that's it folks. I didn't do any drawings in this video, so I thought I'd throw you one at the end. This is an Mosasaurus and the new aviary, and they're chilling in a sandstorm, having a good old time. There you go. Okay, so that is all the information we learned. I'm going to try to cut this down a little bit. It was meant to be super quick, but there was so much stuff. Other than that, from me and my Mosasaurus, thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoyed the video, please do throw me a like. If you appreciate this breakdown of all the information, I know there was a lot of it, but hopefully I've explained it all pretty well. And a like would make you super cool. And I'm already super cool, so if we're both super cool, then we'll both be super cool together. And that's cool, that's hot. Right, thanks for joining me. Cheers, much love as always. Bye-bye.
Houston, if you're ready, we'll maneuver. Reaching out.